He kissed my forehead and whispered, "Tomorrow your heart will stop and I'll take everything." I had the recorder running. He had no idea I'd already given away all $50 million. Where are you watching from? Drop your location and the current time in the comments. And if you want to hear how a dying woman destroyed her killer from beyond the grave, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't believe what happened next. My name is Jasmine Monroe, and I'm going to tell you how I died. But more importantly, I'm going to tell you how I won. Let me start at the beginning. When I was 23 years old, I had $3,000 in my bank account, a laptop that barely worked, and a dream that kept me awake at night. I wanted to build something that mattered. Something that would help people and make me free. I built Monroe Digital Solutions in my tiny apartment. I worked on computer security for hospitals. You know how doctors keep your medical records on computers? I made sure bad people couldn't steal that information. It was hard work. I stayed up late every night. I ate cheap noodles for dinner. I didn't go to parties or buy nice things. But I kept building. 10 years later, my company was worth $50 million. $50 million. I had offices in 3 cities. I had 200 people working for me. I bought a beautiful house with big windows that looked out at the city. I had made it. I was successful, powerful, and completely alone. That's when Brandon Walsh walked into my life. He came to my office as a business consultant. Tall, with kind eyes and a smile that made me feel warm inside. He talked about efficiency and growth, but what I really heard was someone who saw me. Not my money. Not my company. Just me. "You work too hard," he said during our 3rd meeting. "When was the last time you had fun?" I couldn't remember. That should have been my first warning, but I was tired of being alone. Brandon took me to dinner. Then to concerts. Then on a weekend trip to the mountains. He made me laugh. He held my hand. He told me I was beautiful and brilliant and deserving of love. For the first time in years, I felt like a person, not just a businesswoman. 6 months later, we got married on a beach at sunset. It was perfect. He was perfect. Or so I thought. The changes started small. "Do you really need to work this weekend?" he'd ask. Then it became, "Your employees can handle it. You don't trust them enough." Soon it was, "The only thing you care about is your company. What about us?" I started coming home earlier. I gave up some projects. I wanted to make him happy. I wanted to prove that I could be a good wife and still run my business. But it was never enough. Then I got sick. It started with feeling tired all the time. My stomach hurt. I threw up in the mornings. "Maybe you're working too hard," Brandon said, bringing me tea with honey. "Drink this. It'll help." I drank the tea every morning. He was so caring, so worried about me. But I got worse. My hands started shaking. I had bruises on my arms that I couldn't explain. My hair began falling out in the shower. I went to doctors, but they said it was stress. "You need to slow down," they told me. "Take a vacation. Relax." I tried to relax, but my body was breaking down. My heart beat too fast. My vision got blurry. I was dying, and nobody knew why. One night, I woke up at 3 in the morning. Brandon wasn't in bed. I heard him talking on the phone downstairs. I walked quietly to the top of the stairs. "Just 3 more days," he whispered. "The doctors say she doesn't have long. Everything transfers to me automatically. The house, the company, the bank accounts. $50 million, baby. We'll be set for life." My blood turned to ice. "I've been so careful," he continued. "Small amounts every day in her tea. Nobody suspects a thing. They all think it's stress from work." I couldn't breathe. My husband was poisoning me. I went back to the bedroom on shaking legs. I lay down and pretended to sleep when he came back to bed. But inside, my mind was racing. All those months of sickness. The tea he made me every single morning. The way he smiled when I said I felt worse. He was killing me for my money. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I drank the tea he gave me, but when he left the room, I poured it into a plant by the window. I collected the teacup in a plastic bag when he went to work. I drove to a private laboratory across town. Not my regular doctor. Someone who didn't know me or Brandon. Someone who would tell me the truth. "I need you to test this," I told the lab technician. Test for everything. Especially poisons. 3 days later, they called me with the results. Oleander. A poisonous plant that causes heart problems, stomach pain, and death if you take enough of it over time. It was in my tea. It was in my blood. It was killing me slowly, and my husband had been feeding it to me every single day for months. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried. Not because I was dying. I had already accepted that. The poison had done too much damage. My organs were failing. I had maybe a week left. Probably less. I cried because the man I loved, the man I trusted, had spent months watching me suffer while he planned his rich future. But then I stopped crying. I wiped my eyes. I looked at myself in the mirror. Jasmine Monroe didn't build a $50 million company by giving up. I wasn't going to let Brandon Walsh win. If I was going to die, I was going to make sure he paid for what he did. I took out my phone and made a call. Diane, I said when my lawyer answered. I need your help. And I need it fast. I have 3 days to make sure a killer doesn't inherit a single penny from me. That's when my real work began. Not building a company. Building justice. Diane Rivers met me at her office that same afternoon. She's been my lawyer for 8 years. Smart as a whip and tough as nails. When I told her everything, she didn't waste time being shocked. How long do you have? She asked, her pen already moving across her notepad. The doctors say my heart could give out any day. A week at most. She nodded. Then we work fast. First, we change your will immediately. Second, we document everything. Third, we make sure Brandon can't touch a single dollar. But Jasmine, who do you want to inherit your estate? That's when I realized something terrible. I had no one. My parents were gone. I had no children. My friends had drifted away during all those years I spent building my company. The only person close to me was the man who was killing me. I don't know, I whispered. Diane leaned forward. Think. Is there anyone in your life who's shown you kindness? Anyone who deserves a chance? I closed my eyes and thought back over the past few months. All those hospital visits. All those terrible days when I could barely walk. And then I remembered her. Kesha Washington. The cleaning lady at the hospital. She was young, maybe 25. Every time I was there for tests, she'd smile at me. She'd ask how I was feeling. Once when I was crying in the bathroom after getting bad news, she brought me tissues and sat with me. You're going to be okay, she had said, holding my hand. I don't know how, but I can feel it. You're stronger than whatever this is. She didn't know me. She gained nothing from being kind. She just was. I know someone, I told Diane. The next day, I went back to the hospital. Not as a patient this time. I found Kesha emptying trash cans on the 3rd floor. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. Ms. Monroe. I didn't know you had an appointment today. Are you feeling better? Kesha, can we talk somewhere private? The smile faded from her face. She looked worried. Did I do something wrong? No. No, you did everything right. Please. Just 5 minutes. We sat in an empty waiting room. My hands were shaking. How do you ask someone to be part of a plan like this? Kesha, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound crazy. But I need you to listen to everything before you say anything. Can you do that? She nodded slowly. I told her everything. About Brandon. About the poison. About how I was dying and had maybe 3 days left. About how he was going to inherit everything unless I stopped him. I need a witness, I said. Someone who can testify about what happens next. Someone Brandon doesn't know and can't threaten or buy off. And I need someone to inherit my estate so he gets nothing. Kesha's eyes were wide. You want me to inherit your money? But you don't even know me. I know enough. You were kind when you didn't have to be. You have a good heart. And I did some research. You're working 2 jobs to take care of your little sister and your grandmother. You're studying nursing at night school. You're the kind of person who would use this money the right way. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Ms. Monroe, I don't understand. Why me? I took her hands in mine. This was the moment that mattered. The moment I had to make her understand. Because evil men like Brandon destroy good people every day. They take and take and take, And they get away with it because people like me die before we can stop them. But I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to make sure he pays. And I'm going to make sure someone good gets a chance at a better life. That's my choice. That's my power. Even dying, I get to choose what happens next. Kesha was crying hard now. What do you need me to do? Over the next 48 hours, we built the trap. Diane created a new will. Every single dollar of my $50 million estate went to Kesha Washington. Nothing to Brandon. The will was crystal clear and legally unbreakable. Dr. Bishop, a psychiatrist, evaluated me and signed documents proving I was completely mentally sound. Brandon couldn't claim I was confused or manipulated. A notary came to make everything official. But the most important part was the evidence. I needed Brandon to confess. I needed him to admit what he'd done in a way that would hold up in court. Diane brought in a private investigator named Marcus Chen. He installed tiny recording devices in our bedroom, our kitchen, and my hospital room. Everything Brandon said would be captured. One more thing, Marcus said. We traced Brandon's background. Real name is Brandon Walsh, but he's changed it twice before. He has debts all over the country. Gambling mostly. And we found something else. He has a girlfriend. Woman named Tessa Cole. They've been together for 3 years. My stomach turned. 3 years. He'd been with her even before he met me. She knows what he's doing? I asked. We have messages between them. She knows everything. She's waiting for him to get your money so they can run away together. I felt sick, but I also felt something else. Determination. These two people had plotted my death like it was nothing. Like I was just an obstacle to their happy ending. On the 3rd day, I could barely stand. My heart was failing. I checked myself into the hospital and called Brandon. Baby, come quickly, I whispered into the phone. I don't think I have much longer. He arrived within an hour. He rushed to my bedside, grabbed my hand, and his face was the perfect mask of a worried husband. Jasmine, sweetheart, I'm here. I'm right here. Kesha was mopping the floor in the corner. Brandon didn't even look at her. Why would he? She was nobody to him. Just a cleaning lady. But she was the witness who would destroy him. I made my voice weak and scared. Brandon, I need to know something. These past few months being sick, it made me think about everything. About us. Did you ever really love me? His face changed. Just for a second, I saw something cold flash in his eyes. But then the mask came back. Of course I love you. You're everything to me. Really? I squeezed his hand harder. Because I heard you on the phone. 3 nights ago. You said something about 3 days. You said everything would be yours. His hand tensed in mine. His breathing changed. He looked around the room, but Kesha had slipped out to give us privacy. Or so he thought. She was right outside the door, listening to every word. Jasmine, you were dreaming. You've been so sick. Was I dreaming about the oleander, Brandon? Was I dreaming about how you've been poisoning me? The mask fell away completely. His face went hard and angry. You know. I know everything. The tea. The poison. Your girlfriend Tessa. The 3 years you've been planning this. He let go of my hand and stood up. You're smarter than I thought. But it doesn't matter now. You're dying anyway. And there's nothing you can do about it. Why? I asked. My voice broke. This was real pain, not an act. Why couldn't you just leave? Why did you have to kill me? He laughed. Actually laughed. Because leaving means I get nothing. Divorce means I get a fraction. But being your grieving widower? I get it all. $50 million for a few months of making tea. That's a good deal. You're a monster. I'm practical, he said, leaning close. And you were easy. Lonely. Desperate for love. You practically handed yourself to me on a silver platter. Tomorrow, maybe the day after, your heart will stop. Everyone will cry at your funeral. I'll give a beautiful speech about how much I loved you. And then I'll take your money and live the life I deserve. You won't get away with this. He smiled. I already have. He kissed my forehead like I was a child, then walked out of the room. I closed my eyes. The recorder in the lamp by my bed had caught every word. Kesha had heard everything. Marcus had it all on tape. Diane came in a few minutes later. "We have him, Jasmine. Everything we need." I nodded. My chest hurt so badly. My vision was getting dark around the edges. "Make sure he never hurts anyone else." "I promise." That night, my heart stopped at 11:47 p.m. The nurses tried to save me, but the poison had done too much damage. Jasmine Monroe was dead. But my plan was just beginning. I wish I could tell you what happens after you die. But I can't. All I know is what happened next in the world I left behind. And because Diane kept her promise, I can tell you this story the way it should be told. With justice. Brandon played his part perfectly at first. He cried at my funeral. He gave a speech about how much he loved me and how the world had lost a brilliant mind too soon. He wore a black suit and accepted condolences with the sad face of a heartbroken husband. What he didn't know was that Diane had already filed papers with the police. 2 days after my funeral, Detective Sarah Park knocked on Brandon's door. She had the recordings. She had Kesha's testimony. She had the lab reports showing oleander in my blood and in the tea samples I'd saved. She had Marcus Chen's investigation showing Brandon's online purchases of oleander plants 3 months before I got sick. She also had his phone records. Every call to Tessa. Every text message planning their future with my money. "Brandon Walsh, you're under arrest for the murder of Jasmine Monroe." He tried to run. He actually ran out the back door and jumped the fence. But Detective Park had officers waiting. They caught him in less than 2 minutes. At the police station, he demanded a lawyer. He said the recordings were fake. He said I was crazy and paranoid. He said Kesha was lying for money. But then they brought in Tessa. Marcus had found her in a hotel room, packing bags to leave the country. When Detective Park told her she could be charged as an accomplice to murder, Tessa broke down and told them everything. Brandon had done this before. Not murder but marriage fraud. He'd married 2 other wealthy women, taken their money through manipulation and threats, then disappeared. Jasmine Monroe was supposed to be different. She was supposed to be his retirement plan. The big score. "He said it would be easy," Tessa cried. "He said she was so lonely she'd believe anything. He said the poison would look like natural causes. I told him not to do it. I told him to just take what he could and leave. But he wanted it all." In the interrogation room, Brandon's face turned red with rage. "You stupid woman. You weren't supposed to talk. She was a person." Tessa screamed back. "She was a human being and you killed her." That's when Brandon made his biggest mistake. With cameras rolling and officers watching, he stood up and shouted, "She was already dying. I just helped it along. She was going to waste all that money on her company anyway. I deserved it more than she did." Full confession. On camera. Recorded by 3 different devices. The trial took 4 months. Brandon tried to take back his confession. He hired expensive lawyers with money he'd borrowed from loan sharks. He claimed the recordings were edited. He said I had poisoned myself to frame him. But Kesha testified. She stood in that courtroom in her best dress and told the jury everything she'd witnessed. She described the kindness I'd shown her. She explained how I'd asked her to be part of stopping a killer. Ms. Monroe didn't want revenge, Kesha said, her voice clear and strong. She wanted justice. She wanted to make sure no one else got hurt by this man. She died protecting people she'd never even meet. Diane presented the will, the psychiatric evaluation, the lab reports, the recordings, and the testimony of every doctor who'd treated me. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury took less than 3 hours to decide. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of fraud. Guilty of attempted theft. The judge gave Brandon Walsh life in prison without the possibility of parole. Tessa got 15 years for being an accomplice. But the story doesn't end with Brandon in a prison cell. It ends with something better. Kesha Washington inherited $50 million. The first thing she did was pay off her grandmother's medical bills. The second thing was to move her little sister into a safe neighborhood with good schools. The third thing was to finish her nursing degree without working 2 jobs. But then she did something I would have been proud of. She created the Jasmine Monroe Foundation for abuse survivors. Half of my fortune went into a fund that helps people escape dangerous relationships. The foundation pays for lawyers, safe housing, medical care, and therapy for anyone trying to get away from someone who hurts them. Ms. Monroe saved my life by trusting me, Kesha said at the foundation's opening ceremony. Now I'm going to use her gift to save other lives. That's what she would have wanted. The foundation has helped 3,000 people in 2 years. 3,000 people who might have died like I did. 3,000 people who got a second chance because I used my last 3 days to choose justice over silence. Kesha still works as a nurse. Not because she has to, but because she loves helping people. She bought a nice house where her grandmother can live comfortably. Her little sister is in college now, studying to be a doctor. And every year on the anniversary of my death, Kesha visits my grave and tells me about the people the foundation has saved. I know this because Diane told her to keep a journal. To write down everything so my story would be remembered. So other people would know that even when you're dying, even when evil seems to be winning, you still have power. You still have choices. Brandon thought he was so clever. He thought he'd found the perfect victim. A lonely, successful woman who'd give him everything and die quietly. But he forgot something important. The same intelligence that built a $50 million company could also destroy a killer's plans. The same determination that turned $3,000 into an empire could also turn death into justice. I spent 10 years building a business. I spent 3 days building a legacy. Which one mattered more? Both did. The business gave me the resources. The legacy gave me purpose. If you're reading this story, hear what I'm saying. If someone is hurting you, you don't have to stay silent. If someone is taking advantage of you, you don't have to accept it. If someone thinks you're weak because you're kind or lonely or trusting, prove them wrong. You are stronger than you know. You are smarter than they think. And you deserve better than what they're giving you. Use your voice. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. Build your evidence. Make your plan. Don't let them win. And if you see someone who needs help, be like Kesha. Show kindness. Pay attention. Be the person who cares when no one else does. You might save a life. You might change everything. I'm Jasmine Monroe. I built an empire, married a monster, and died at 33 years old. But I didn't lose. I won. Because Brandon Walsh will die in prison, and my money is feeding hungry children, housing abuse survivors, and giving people hope. That's not defeat. That's victory. My last 3 days changed everything. What will you do with yours? Don't wait until you're dying to decide what matters. Don't wait until it's too late to protect yourself and others. Start now. Today. This moment. Trust your instincts. Document the truth. Build your allies. Create your plan. Fight for justice. And remember that one person with courage and determination can change the world. Even if that person only has 3 days left to live. I did it. So can you. That's my story. That's my legacy. That's my call to you. Make it count.